Hello and welcome to the Volunteer Firefighter Podcast. My name is Ash. I'm joined with two members of my firefighting family. We got Scott and we have Todd.
Hello.
And from a ways away, we've been chatting for a couple of years now. Happy to finally have you on. We've got Officer Autumn out of Maine.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so just for our listeners' sake, our connection goes way back to our friends from the Brotherhood Academy Radio podcast, which sadly no longer is a thing. But yeah, pour out a little liquor for our boys. I mean, they're all still alive, but just busy with other ventures. They're all still in the service, just no longer making podcasts. So Nick and the boys there, they had you on. That has to be 2 years ago now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a lot, I think, for both of us has changed in the past couple seasons. But why don't you give our listeners a bit of a background into what you did? Obviously, your name is Officer Autumn. So give us a bit of a background. You've got it. No, well,
I know.
Right. But that was for the longest time your Instagram and Facebook handle, right?
Yeah.
And there's been a bit of a shift and you're transitioning, but why don't you give our listeners a background into what you do, what you did, and where you're heading from here?
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. This is super fun. It's always fun to get a cop on a firefighter's podcast, right? No. Anyways, no. So my name is Autumn Clifford, if you're brand new to me. And I've been a police officer since I've been 20 years old. At the age of 26, I suffered a career-ending injury. I don't have a cool story. I wasn't doing anything cool. I just have a back injury. I have a herniated, torn, and degenerative disc on my lowest back. People do have deal with degenerative discs and they deal with like the herniated disc, but the problem is the tear is almost all the way through my disc. And so, continuing patrol as you know, as like a firefighter, like being a first responder, your day is just, you never know what you're going to get into. So if I were to get into a situation where I couldn't stop doing something and had severe pain, the tear could have went all the way through. My doctor didn't know what was going to happen. Hence, was I going to be paralyzed from the waist down? We weren't sure. I was not a candidate for surgery. So I had to get out of full-time patrol. I'm still a part-time police officer in the state of Maine. I am not on patrol. I do it just to maintain my certifications because I went through an 18-week live-in academy. But during that time when I got injured, I became couch-ridden for 6 months. I went through a lot of pain. We can talk about it if you guys are interested. But in that time, I found myself in a really deep depression. I was anxiety ridden. I was extremely depressed. I was chilling on my couch because I couldn't move because of this damn back injury, right? And from there, I said, I cannot be the only first responder that's going through this. I went through a complete identity loss. I thought I was going to be the Walmart greeter because overnight, I'm no longer a police officer. I have a master's in criminal justice. So like my plan was to move up into the administration. That didn't happen. And so I found myself literally in a depression and an identity crisis. From that spot, I said, okay, I can't be the only person. That's when I started my podcast. My podcast has changed its name several times. Not gonna lie, I've had it since 2018. And it's currently called She's an Asset. But if you want to hear a very raw, upset version of a person who's in identity crisis, go listen to the first 10 episodes because I give it to you real. And anyways, yeah, that really kind of started, it started things, and I've been coaching professionally for the last 8 years. I'm now speaking and training first responders. And that's where the Officer Autumn came in is I developed a training platform. I was working a lot with mental health for first responders. So I worked with firefighters, correctional officers, dispatchers, wives, police officers, you name it. And then I transitioned because I felt like there was nobody talking to women, specifically female cops. I see so many beautiful influencers out there, and they are, but they weren't helping. Like I wanted, who could I look up to if I was a young woman who wanted to get on the job? So I stepped into that space, and that is where the Officer Autumn brand was developed. But at this moment, we've kind of transitioned to open that up so I can talk to more than just law enforcement, but we still have the trainings. We're still doing the things. We just kind of opened it up to she's an asset.
Beauty. Yeah. I mean, that's a ton of info on kind of where you've been. I think it's very interesting for people to go back and listen to those early episodes that you were saying. I mean, they're raw, and I mean, it's a good listen, but they definitely paint a picture of, kind of, what you were going through, how you got into that headspace, and then how you were able to, use that as a motivation factor to kind of push through to what you're up to today. And then, now kind of pivoting to female empowerment and like helping the female first responder, be it law enforcement, fire, military, whatever it might be. It's an awesome thing. Prior to us getting on the air tonight, we were just saying to you how locally here we have about a 37 member firefighter base here. We currently have two females on. We have two more that are actively trying to get on. It looks to be a pretty tight hiring, or a pretty tight group that we're going to be hiring. I think we have 8 or 9. We can bring on 4. But yeah, they are looking switched on, ready to work. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a pretty interesting interview process. And I mean, I think we can be pretty proud to say that race, sex, none of that plays any factor when we're doing our interview process. And it's a shift in kind of culture from the way things used to be way back in the day, which isn't all that way back. Like having the people that we have on now, and we've actually had a couple come and go just because they moved or whatever the deal was. But like they were like active and an equal member to our family here. And like, I know you guys have.
Yeah, we're sitting at 4 members right now. Well, 5, one's admin as well. And we've had a couple others come and go in the past as well. But again, you're just talking about the culture shift. I remember when we first got the first female applicant. And at the time, unfortunately, it was that old boys kind of style of leadership. And it was like, oh, this is crazy. We can't have that. And all of us young guys are like, why? I don't get it. What are you talking about? Like, I've worked with amazing female partners in my career, in my normal day-to-day job. Like, I don't see what the roadblock is here. And, of course, we had some amazing females come on, and the female firefighters that are in our department now, they are absolutely leaders and influencers, and they are right there beside anybody else in our department.
Yeah, I mean, I at the end of the day, I mean, it's about the people, right? It really doesn't matter their gender. And that's what I teach. I talk to the women a lot, especially young women new into this. It's like, listen, nobody cares that you're a woman. You just need to show that you can do the job. Can you do this job? We're not trying to, and that's the thing is like, I really think that there's also been a shift with the mindset for women too, because we're not looking for shortcuts. I want to be, listen to me, okay? Like I want to be able to do exactly what you can do, if not better, because I can do it. Like, don't, the female standards and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of debate over that, but I think the right mindset is truly about just being the absolute best first responder you can be. And then at the end of the day, we're all happy because we truly just want to work with people beside us who can have our backs and who can do the job. Like that's what we're looking for,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, the best way to look at it. And, everybody brings, like when we start talking about the volunteer or paid on call departments when it comes to firefighting, our big thing is everybody brings something kind of unique, right? And that can be their walk of life, that can be their employment, some background knowledge, their size, their strength, and like the biggest, toughest guy is going to bring a ton of pick it up, put it down strength. That's great, but that big, huge guy isn't going to fit into certain spaces. So we've got smaller firefighters that we have, and they're always like we've got one of them who's actually down in Texas now, and like he gets down on himself because he's like, oh, like I'm not as big as the other guys. We're like, no, but you bring something. Like if we have to go into a confined space, or if you have to, contort a certain way, big, a firefighter here isn't going to get that job done. And like you being like physically fit and able to get yourself in there brings something so huge to that task that the other guy doesn't. And, when everybody can bring something unique, it doesn't matter size, whatever, as long as they're able to get the job done. So when, somebody is coming on, hopefully they're not thinking about like, hey, like I've got to prove myself because I am a female. No, just come and prove yourself. Yeah. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's one thing when we redid our physical qualifications here at the department. We don't have there's no female standard. It's a standard. The standard's a standard, and my law enforcement job, the standard's a standard. So we don't have any because the fire doesn't care what gender you are, what size you are, what race you are, and neither do the criminals. Sometimes I know in law enforcement, sometimes females actually do better with some criminals because they talk differently, like they can speak differently to them, as opposed to the big musclehead coming in.
Yeah.
Yes. So it fits all aspects of people fit into these jobs.
In what you were saying, Ash, and you were talking about how you're right, like how the smaller gentleman was like, hey, like I'm feeling kind of a little bit like shit about myself because I don't look like this, and kind of getting down on himself. And I loved how you course corrected his mind, gave him a mindset reset. But I just think that's such an analogy for life, because what we all tend to do is we all tend to try to fit in, and we all tend to try to be like the people around us. But what we don't do enough is we don't focus on what we bring to the table. And that's something that I talk a lot about to my clients and on my podcast is I'm like, listen, wait a minute. Like if we all brought the same shit to the table, well, that'd be boring and we're not going to be super successful, as a team, as a unit, as a company, no matter what position you're in. But like is the people who really win in life, they're the most fulfilled, but they're also the most successful are the people who can look in the mirror and know exactly what they bring to the table. And then they continue to sharpen those skills. Right. So I just think that is something that we want to really make sure we're spreading the word, because I also think that that's going to help with the mental health piece, which you guys are very big on talking about, which I spent the first 4 or 5 years of my career as a coach was all about the mental health and the resiliency aspect, because we're all trying to, the culture creates us all trying to fit in. We're all trying to fit in.
Absolutely. And, that's one thing I feel like most agencies was never really brought to the forefront in the past. Like for myself in EMS, like it was always just like, suck it up, move on to the next call. Here you go. And
that's it.
You had, okay, well, I guess, I'll process that crazy call later at some point in my life, and off you go to the next crazy call. Mm-hmm. And, it builds up, so we didn't have the first clue how to have any resiliency or how to process these events. Now, thankfully, society in general, it's a lot more information out there. People are a lot more open to talking. Going through my life events with PTSD and learning from it, and then now I'm on one of our CISM teams as well for work and the fire department. And I just back to another CISM refresher on suicide awareness and safe talk and stuff. And just that, again, just expands your knowledge so much more, how to build that resilience and how to talk to other people. And some of the phone calls I make when we do a peer check-in now after an event is amazing. Like I'm talking to some of these people, and they're like, oh, yeah, I've been in the service 2 years. They're 21, 22 years old. And so right away I'm thinking, oh, man, they don't have resiliency. Like I'm going to try and help coach them a bit. And they're like, yeah, no, I've booked a counselor. I see a counselor every month and this and that. I've heard other people, just to have that resilience, and it's good to have somebody to talk to. And like, wow, that's amazing. Like that was never part of our culture before. Like you would never want to tell a friend or tell somebody that you don't know, even over the phone, that, hey, I'm going to see a counselor. Like that was not talked about in the past. And now it is, which is huge.
It's so true. I know. And like, I mean, I have a therapist. And, I just really suggest like everybody, especially if you're a first responder, there's just nothing wrong with it. In fact, one thing that I'd like to just point out to anybody who's listening, the most successful people in the world, they have therapists and they have coaches and they have a whole support system. This idea that like we have to do it all on our own is just asinine. And the other idea that we're going to go home and dump on our partners. Okay, well, that's a recipe for a failed friggin' marriage,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. And I mean, that's something that, we really try to hammer home here with our show is it's easy if you're, maybe easy isn't the word, but if you're a full-time firefighter or a full-time whatever, you have those moments of downtime after a call. I mean, we don't have that. Like as a pig on call or volunteer, when we're coming back from a call, we have somewhere else to be. It could be 2:30 in the afternoon, so you don't have a lot of time for that bumper talk where you can come back and like it doesn't need to be a crazy call, just something that kind of sticks in the back of your mind. Maybe something didn't quite sit right with you, whatever it is, and it's like you know what, like it wasn't a big deal. It's fine. So you have a 30-second chat with your crew, and then all right, guys, see you later, and we're all back to work, or we're running home for dinner, or go pick the kids up, whatever it is. So, kind of normalizing just getting out in front of people and chatting, I think is what really brings people to like our platform here. I think just the kind of normalization of talking about your successes, but also your failures and being able to openly discuss that rather than, that quick, bottle it up and rush out is a huge thing that I think people have really gravitated towards for us here. Mm-hmm. And that whole, what's the word? Like trying to like normalize it really. I think is a big asset in like what we're trying to preach here. And again, I think that kind of ties into your whole, program and what you're preaching out there. I think is an awesome thing. And the more we can get that in front of people, the better off for everybody.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the sort of programs and platforms that you do offer? So we know you have the podcast. You have a couple places that people can find you on the internet. Tell us a bit about kind of what those are, what your
Want me to tell you what I'm all about, Ash?
Yeah, why don't you tell us kind of what you're all about? Yeah, I guess that's where I'm going.
Yeah. So thanks for that opportunity. Basically, it's like this. When I went through everything that I went through, there was nobody to help me. Okay. My agency was not very supportive at all. And I think people can relate to this. And so I was literally on my own to deal with not only my injury, but all of this processing, all the things. And so, like I said, I started coaching from my couch because it was the only thing that I could do. I needed to do something. I needed a career switch. So, I started out doing very different kind of coaching. I started out actually as a Beachbody coach. Do you guys know what that is? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You guys have that in Canada?
Tony, no, what's his name?
I don't know.
You did like the 90-day, what was that thing?
Yes. Well, yeah. He did P90X, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got really hooked on the 21-day fix. And her name was Autumn Calabrese. Anyways, I got really hooked on that when I was on patrol because it was like these little boxes you could put like, and it was all portioned. So that was like my lunch was like a bunch of like blue and like green boxes. Anyways, so I started with that. And then it kind of transformed because exactly what you're talking about. I had a lot of first responders who didn't want to go see a therapist because, like they're not fucked up, but they just wanted someone to talk to who got it. And like I said, based on those first 10 podcast episodes, which by the way, when I tried to quit after episode 20, I was done. I'm like, all right, I feel like I got it all out. My inbox was so flooded I didn't even know anybody was listening. Truly had no idea. I didn't do that for that. My podcast this sounds selfish. It's not for anybody. Like, it was for me. I needed to heal. Like, and I just want to say that too, for anybody listening, like, that was my way of processing. I got, diagnosed with anxiety, an anxiety disorder and PTSD from the job. I needed something. Nobody was there for me. My therapist was awesome, but she wasn't a cop. And like, just for you, like you just said it, like, you want to be around people who are like you and who get it and that you guys can talk about. Right. And for me, that was like what the podcast was. So I became a coach, started listening to people because people were like, hey, you get it. Will you coach me? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll coach you. So anyways, I've been coaching. So on my website, you can go to autumnclifford.com. You can check out, I have a ton of free resources. I actually have my entire like mindset routine that I have developed for myself to take myself from really in a bad spot to, I would say decently successful. I'm nowhere near where I'm going or where I want to be, but, pretty successful. And compared to where I was, I can tell you that. And I have like a bunch of free resources for female first responders on my website. And I'm at the Autumn Clifford on Instagram. No longer Officer Autumn Ash. I know that makes me sad. Are you guys on TikTok?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I love TikTok.
Yeah. I'd say we also love TikTok, but our upload content isn't as frequent as it could be.
Yeah.
It's been blowing up like crazy over the past few years. It's definitely been the platform to get those shorter little snippets of info out there. And we should definitely be doing a better job at it. It's not going away. That's completely, like, I kind of felt like, this is a fad. This isn't a fad. Oh, it's huge. And now, like, I'd say our main focus was on Facebook, and because we're old, and that's apparently where the old information goes. So we've been shifting from Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We're on, we are on TikTok. We are on Twitter. We try to get as much of the info out to everybody as possible. Like we were saying prior to the start of the show here, we are going to be doing some cross sharing to make sure that your people can get out and see what we're doing here, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But that's kind of our dabble there. How have you been finding the TikTok?
Oh, I love it. I do a lot of like informational pieces.
Yeah.
So like my social media, I tend to make it very much informational. My podcast is like a coaching podcast. So if you're going to listen to it now, again, got to get past those first 20 episodes. But like if you're going to listen to it within the last few years, I've really shifted to a personal development podcast. So you're going to come on and you're going to learn. And it's not only, I'm not like teaching you. I mean, there's some things I'm teaching you, but truthfully, I just really believe that we all have it within us. We just have to kind of tap into it. But we're so busy looking for stuff on the outside of us that we forget to like tune in, So that's really what I'm big on. And that's what I do on my socials is it's very informational or educational. Very rarely am I just posting to post. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think with us, it was the reason why we didn't have very many videos is because there's so many, like, we're kind of training. We were trying to training base at first.
Yeah.
People using, like, there's only so many videos you can watch with someone running a nozzle.
Yeah.
Or doing something that's fire related. So we were kind of like, do we need to get into that realm?
Mm-hmm.
And then even with the podcast when we first did it, it's kind of like you. We just did it for fun. Well, not for fun. We did it to kind of talk like we are.
Yeah.
And we recorded it, and then we put it out there, and it went Anchor, and then it ended up on YouTube or not YouTube, iTunes, and the podcast. All the platforms.
Yeah.
We got a message from a guy from Australia once. And we're like, what just happened?
That's what happened to me too. I'm like, what?
So then we get random messages from people all over the world, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess we should keep doing this. so that's why, that's why we kind of just kept building our base from that. Right?
Have you guys like thought of like, because you guys are all volunteer firefighters, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys like thought of like going educational on that route? Like, what if like anybody wants to become a volunteer firefighter and like just take them through absolutely everything and like the life of a volunteer firefighter? Because listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, you guys get a little bit of a bad rap, like, oh, friggin', you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, no, you have no idea what this is like. You don't even understand, you know?
It's back to what I was saying earlier. The fire doesn't care that we're volunteers. And we had a company called Modus. I don't know if you saw their video with that, where they came out and filmed us.
Yeah, I did.
So with those guys, like we said in the video, like the fire doesn't care, like we're it for the town. Like, and all the volunteers in theirs, but like in North America, I think it's 80% of fire departments are still volunteer fire departments. By volunteer, we mean paid on call, not basically. It's not their full time job.
Yes.
They might be paid, but they don't do it full time.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think they don't realize that the training has to be. It isn't, but it should be the same as the full time guys. Like, and that's kind of what we push. It should doesn't matter if you're in the smallest town ever. You should be able to make a training program where you're doing it safely and you're making the best firefighters you can, because, like we said, the fire doesn't care. The people in the town don't care because they're paying taxes to have a fire department show up and do whatever they were asked to do. So it shouldn't be at the end of the day, well, we're just volunteers. Like, what do you expect from us? That's not an excuse.
Yeah, we expect perfection.
We expect you to do your job.
Yeah. So, kind of to answer your question, that's absolutely one of our goals once we start to move forward here is kind of trying to take this out on the road and do some hands-on training, do some tabletop training, just getting out in front of more and more people. We'd like to demo it kind of in our region and kind of see what that looks like. You know, we've obviously got some decent relationships built kind of close to home here. Would be an awesome opportunity to kind of lean on that and get out in front of some added in-person audience. But yeah, as this grows, getting out there, doing training tips, doing that early on, like kind of rookie firefighter and kind of what to expect. Like, unless you're there for weeks, you can't really train a rookie firefighter. But getting the information to them and kind of help guide them grow as a rookie is something that we really try to instill in our newer firefighters here. And not letting them like sink and
back in the old days.
Back in the old days. There's a quote that we always tell our new recruits, which was a quote that was told to us. Now we say it as a joke, but there was an old boy here, and he
was always on the hiring panel.
He was always there, and like, I don't know why, and like, bless him, he's an awesome guy, but he would tell these guys, he told us, he's like, you are useless for the first 5 years. I'm like, oh. Well,
that sounds like law enforcement.
I kind of come with some skills. Like, I'm not like 14 years old. Like, I'm a grown man. Nope. Sit off to the side. You know, just shut up. And like, we're like, you know what? Like, again, back to what I said to start with, there is everybody brings something special. Everybody brings their own skill set and their own strengths that in the heat of the moment might not be the time to like, oh, hey, just so you know, like when things are happening rapidly, you can't like have a quick round table with somebody. But when you're first coming up, when you're training, if you're an entry level carpenter, that's very useful information to have as a firefighter. Oh, like, you know what we always say, what a parapet wall is. As a non-carpenter, you might not know what that is. You will learn it throughout your course of a firefighter. But like, if you're a rookie and your fellow rookies, you don't know that. And I don't know that you know that. So by speaking up and saying, hey, I've got these skills, hey, that's really, really important. If you see something, even as a rookie firefighter that might not be safe, again, that like just sit back and shut up sort of thing that has been in the industry for years, ever, like, use your mouth. Never hesitate to like speak up and say something. if you think it's going to either save someone's life, it's, stop them from getting hurt, or stop them from doing something stupid. I don't even care if it hurts them. Just don't allow them to continue to do something dumb, because you have this knowledge from whatever walk of life that you had prior to walking in these doors. Mm-hmm. Speak up and say it. But when it comes to training a new skill set, maybe that's the time to be a bit more quiet and reserved and listen, but also ask questions. So it's definitely a much different dynamic today than what you would see prior. That classic, you're useless for the first 5. Sit down, shut up. Like, I don't even want to know that you're here. Well, like, how is that building people up, right? So, like, those are the sort of things that I think we as a group here are really trying to help get through and get past, and get passed along to others as well. So saying that we're going to go out there and get in front of new rookie firefighters, it'd be equally as beneficial to get out in front of their training officers and work alongside them and help develop this new mindset, this new culture, whatever you want to label it as, and just help lay some of that new groundwork moving forward. Mm-hmm. So yes, to circle all the way back to answer your question, yes, we would love to see ourselves out there and kind of offer something like that. I don't know what that would on paper look like, but I think that's kind of a bit of a loose vision. And then obviously some good hands-on training, because like Scott also said, the fire doesn't care how much money you guys have as a department, as an agency. Your training needs to be at the top level. Most of our questions coming in are, hey, I'm new on the training department. Hey, I want to help lead training. Like, what can I do? We don't have live fire burn buildings. And we give some like bare bones training ideas and tips and tricks. And they're like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to take that to my training officer. And then they reach back out 2 or 3 weeks later. Hey, we laid out this training night just like you guys suggested. And it went off amazing. So all of these little things that like we just roll out because we've been working together for, quite a while. We've had some good people that came up before us, and we're hoping that we're giving that to the next people coming up behind us. If we can get that info out there to men and women that are out in our industry, I think that's going to be great.
I agree fully. Mm-hmm. I think, and like TikTok's a really great platform for short, digestible clips, educational clips like that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Less of the hands-on, like this is how you open the, bail. This is how you do this. I mean, there's lots of cool stuff for product. Like we've got some video coming out. We've got with Modus, those guys that did the video. They have some awesome product that like help us do what we do better. I love that space to be like, hey, this is a great product. Like we're working with these guys. They're not paying us in any shape, way, or form. It just helps us do our job better. It can help you do yours. They're not the only people making these things. However, and doing like quick videos of just how to be better goes a long way as well. So yeah, we have some of those that are coming up. We have one this week, 1 or 2 the following week, and then lots of other stuff. So we are getting better with our social media game. No thanks to us.
It's hard for us to get video content too, because being all captains, it's generally we're involved in the training, and it's hard to step back and start doing a quick little video footage or something because we're the ones involved.
Absolutely.
So that gets difficult sometimes. But
yeah,
we'll try and do better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just added time, and like we're obviously very committed to seeing this thing grow. So it's just fine that added time. Now that the weather's getting better, like coming out of winter here, it's a challenge when it's, you're driving to work at 8, whatever in the morning, 7:30 to be at work by 8, and it's dark. You go home at 4:30, it's dark. Now we've got...
It's minus 20.
And it's like minus 20, whatever that is in American. But it's cold.
I'm sure.
Yeah, freezing. So, yeah, I mean, we haven't had snow on the ground for a couple weeks now. It's actually supposed to snow again, sadly. But, like getting back into spring here, it's going to be great. We can get out, do some daylight training, which is good. Like, we don't stop training in the wintertime. If it's -20, if it's a blizzard, like, that doesn't matter. Because, again, snow doesn't stop the fire. Snow stops a grass fire. It doesn't stop the structure fire. It doesn't stop vehicles from crashing. It actually helps them. So we have to go out there and train and do it in the worst conditions, because that's when we're going to be called upon.
Yeah, we were actually talking to Behind the Shield. I remember his first name.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and he said, because he's a full-time firefighter, and this is quite a few. This is one of our first interviews, I think. And he had actually said his union, because he's a full-time firefighter, doesn't allow them to train in certain weather conditions.
Isn't that crazy?
And we're like, what? He goes, yeah, and he says, oh, you guys are allowed to do it whatever weather conditions. We're like, yeah, because those are the weather conditions that are going to facilitate that. Like, if we're training grass fires, we're training it in the middle of August, because that's when we're getting a grass fire.
That's it.
Like ice rescue. Of course, we have to train ice rescue when it's freezing cold out, because we have to go in a lake. That's actually what we just trained last week.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing that we don't do is spark up our burn building in the middle of August. And I mean, a little bit of that is obviously it's super hot and we're going to roast our guys. But also, like, being the tip of a desert here, we have really bad wildfires here every year. Like, we're getting closer and closer to the California-esque sort of fires. Less of the wind-driven, but still very, very, very heavy fire seasons here. So the last thing we want to do, even though we take every single precaution that we can, and I can't imagine anything would ever happen with what we have in place, but just like the visual of everywhere around us is on fire, and here's the OFD over there sparking up their burn building and smoking out the town more so than what it all already is. Like, we have a nickname. We're from the Okanagan Valley. It's the Smokanagan Valley every summer, because we have so many wildfires around us. That it gets crazy smoky here every single summer now. So that's really the only time that we take a break, is like that July and August, when we don't light up the building, but we're still actively doing auto extrication, forest fire training, whatever it is. You don't take a break just because it's hot or just because it's cold. There's some seasonal things, like obviously we can't go do ice rescue in the middle of summer, but we're out there doing water rescue. We have swift water. We have a river that runs directly through the valley here. So we're out on the water, and those 100 and whatever degree days, and the guys love it because they can actually get in the water. Us guys that have to stay on the side, we sweat a bit more, but you don't stop. You just have to keep pushing through it.
I think that's also some of the law enforcement training too. When we're training on the range, it's hot, and the guys are like, "We should an indoor range." Like, well, gunfights don't always happen indoors. They rarely happen indoors, in fact. so they're like, "Oh, we're going to train because it's hot, and this could be where it's going to happen."
I know. We can be funny that way, humans, right? We really can be. We're like, no, let's just train where we're comfortable, but it really is about getting uncomfortable, like you guys are saying. Do you guys follow David Goggins at all?
Sure. Yeah.
Have you read his second book? Never finished?
No. I read his first one. I didn't read his second.
So his second one, he talks about that he is actually he jumps out of planes, and he jumps out of planes for these wildfires.
I think he's actually in BC.
He's been in BC. Yeah.
Last year he was in BC. He was here.
Yeah. What's it called?
Like a smoke jump?
Smoke jumping?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's pretty freaking cool, man.
Yeah. It's crazy that he's like so famous, I guess is the term.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh,
He is.
let's go fight a wildfire. It's like, okay.
Oh,
It's awesome. It's fun. And I guess that's why you do it. Because,
Yeah.
we're all kind of in that realm where we want to keep doing the things we enjoy.
Keep doing the things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of neat seeing, people that come from, different backgrounds that get into some form of the fire service as well, one way or the other. Wow, I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, damn it. This is bad for our watchers and listeners, but
none of us can think of his name. I was actually knew he was going to talk about. He was in the French Foreign Legion. He actually wrote a book.
Oh, really?
He was on Jocko, actually, when he wrote the book.
Really?
And now he's actually from BC. So he actually flies helicopter around here. He was actually just over by our airport this summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I shot a message. I'm like, hey man, like
I can't remember his name.
I can see you from where I am. I think that's the helicopter that you're in. Because we follow him and he takes photos and such. And he's like, hey buddy, yeah, like that's awesome. Like I wish I had time. Like I'm just getting ready to fly again. And then his turnaround was the next day or whatever it was. But yeah, like he comes from a military background, and then he comes back here. He's since retired, and he got his license for aviation.
Joel Struthers.
Thank you. Yeah, so he has a couple really awesome books out as well. But yeah, now he was doing some avalanche training, doing the drops and whatnot, and then transitioned to the forestry firefighting, and now flies a helicopter for BC Wildfire, which is really cool.
That's very cool.
Like that's the glamour job. Like those guys that get to fly over top of us, those guys are amazing pilots.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
That's like top tier.
That sounds it.
Yeah.
More?
Yeah. Anything else that you guys want to ask? Yeah, well, yeah. Surprise. Is there anything else that you wanted to let our listeners know about yourself, about your platforms? I hate saying any tips and tricks that you can give because that's completely what you're trying to do on your platform. And I mean, we've obviously been chatting about that already, but basically, is there anything that you want to add? Anything that in the last wrapping moments here that we can touch on before we sign off?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a couple of things. I think, something that we touched on and obviously that you guys are really big on, but I just want to kind of hit the point home is I do think sometimes like the volunteer like avenue gets a bad rep, but like you guys are so important, and anybody that's listening to this, like you are really, really friggin' important. And it doesn't matter. Like sometimes social media can be cruel. Sometimes people can just be assholes. Like, oh, well, you're not like full time, but like really value yourself. And if you're listening to this, then obviously you are a step ahead of the majority because you're trying to better yourself. And so I just think it's really important, as a listener, I just want to highlight and I want to like honor that, we see you. Cause I'm going to tell you, for me, when I was on patrol, like my volunteer firefighters saved my ass. A lot of times they come out and they do the shit that like I really didn't want to do. So I love you guys. They do up in Maine, they do a lot of traffic control for all my crashes, which was really nice because then I wasn't stuck there, but that's the stuff. It's like the thankless jobs, but so valuable because then I didn't have to do that. I was doing a bunch of other things, handling crashes, whatever, dealing with a bunch of bullshit per usual. But also the other thing I would like to just say is for, any woman who's listening to this, you maybe you're like on the seat and you want to become, a volunteer firefighter, or you want to become a first responder, whatever it is that you want to do. I just think it's really important that you can absolutely do this. And you just got to train. And that goes for anybody. Like, it doesn't matter. Just train and you can absolutely do this job.
Yeah, absolutely. For somebody that's followed you for years now, and like your main goal is to empower females, there's a ton of info that you can take away from listening to all of your platforms. Not just the female responder. You're getting a ton of mental growth information out there, and it's really, really cool. But for any like you said, for any female that is in the game in one way or another, we definitely recommend going over there, following you, giving your podcast a listen, checking out your social medias, and just kind of see what you're about. If this guy can find some good positives, there's a ton out there for us. Go and give Autumn a follow. We've been following for years now, and you're definitely doing really, really awesome work.
Well, and I really appreciate that, Ash. And like the last thing I would just like to say, I know my husband hates it because I always like to get the last word, but this is a positive. This is a positive. But what I just want to say too is how important it is to continue to feed your mind. And that's why like what I put out there is so different, in my opinion, than like a lot of first responder platforms, just because I'm sitting here telling you like personal growth, trust your gut, go with your intuition. I'm telling you like all this stuff that will like benefit you. And the reason I know that, you guys, is because when I was in a really bad spot, and it can happen to any of us. And you don't have to be a first responder. It can happen to any of us at any point in time. We are all humans. And especially as a first responder, you know how quickly here today, gone tomorrow. You know how quickly life alters. You get into a crash. Who even knows? You have a situation. Everything changed. The only thing you can control is your mind. That is the only thing you can control. And so you have to become good at controlling your mind, and you've got to feed it good stuff. And, listening to this podcast is definitely huge, and continuing to feed your mind, not just with one podcast a week, right? Like we have to continue to do the things. And so I just think that's really important.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I can agree more with that. Like, and I think that culture is shifting to that now. Like over the past handful of years, I've lost a number of friends through work, through suicide. And I feel it's a lot because of that. They've felt isolated, and they're not growing, and they're not, expanding their base to build that tenacity and that resilience that we need. So now seeing the shift in the newer, younger culture in our services, and even outside of our services, is amazing. And having a platform like yourself out there to help empower and learn, we'll definitely preach it. So I love it. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think the more of us that can come together, like you said in the beginning, and really just kind of rally together to let everybody know, like, we're in it together, I think it's just so beneficial, because so many times we just think we're the only ones going through something, It's like, oh, I'm the only one that this has happened to, and I'm the only one that feels like a piece of shit. It's like, no, we all feel it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is normal. Sadly, reach out, talk about it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a really wicked chat. A couple years in the making, so it's awesome to finally have a chance to make it happen. Once again, go and give Autumn a follow. We appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks again.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again to Autumn for coming on. It was a really good chat. We always kind of say, hey, this will be like 30-ish minutes, and try to find things to chat about. And I think once the chat starts going, it's cool to just kind of see how some of it naturally flows out. And Autumn's got a really good thing that she's doing there, and just getting some like-minded ideas flowing back and forth was nice. So, again, thanks. Hopefully, everybody goes out and gives her a subscribe and a listen and a like, and follows along on all of her platforms.
Yeah, she's got a lot of great platforms there. Like very similar kind of alignments that we talk about a lot on here as well. And anything to build resilience and leadership and just build your personal growth is huge. It's going to benefit you in the fire service.
Yeah, 100%. Perfect. Well, let's wrap into some of our shout-outs. Let's start off with Modus. Scott?
Modus, Snagger Tools are their claim to fame. They also do, actually I just saw Instagram, they're doing a truck, not the truck kit.
Right.
And they're doing some free giveaways of that. So check that out on Instagram. Luke's on there talking about it.
Perfect.
They do the wedges, truck kit, like I said. It's truck kit, right? That's what it's called.
Yep.
Yeah. The mask bags. They still have mask bags?
I think they do.
Yep.
Yeah. Pocket organizers.
Yeah, Modus, DTFF 5 for 5% off all your Modus needs.
Perfect. Todd, let's chat about Manscaped.
Manscaped, yeah. So we talk a lot about keeping yourself clean in the nether regions. We were talking about just coming off of the Firefighter Cancer Awareness Month. But that's an everyday event that we need to be doing. So with the Manscaped product, of course, it's a lot better product out there than some of the others for the personal grooming areas. And they have a beard trimmer as well now.
Yeah,
that's coming out.
A weed whacker.
So the weed whacker 4.0. And then we've got the...
Is the weed whacker 4.0? Or is it
No.
It's the lawnmower 4.0.
Oh, the lawnmower.
Just a straight up weed whacker.
Sorry, yeah. So the lawnmower 4.0 and the weed whacker. It's a lot safer for any sort of trimming needs than some of the other appliances that people use. And you know what? They come with all sorts of stuff. You got underwear, you got shirts, you got creams and toners, any of the Manscaped products. So we'd really appreciate if you guys go check them out online and use our discount code, which is DTFF20.
Yeah, so there's a quote on the weed whacker itself. It says, "You're trimming my nose hair is actually fun now." It's from Greg. He's one of their verified customers. But it says here, revolutionary electric ear and nose hair trimmer, skin safe technology, 9,000 RPM motor, 360-degree rotary dual blade system, waterproof, intelligent contour design. I wasn't a big nose and ear hair trimmer until I had the opportunity to do so easily. And it's crazy, once you start looking, I'm like, man, why do I have hairs there? And it is nice. It's just so easy to use, easy to clean. I've been using it like crazy. It's part of my routine now. So big fan.
Yeah, it's funny. I was using it the other day. I busted out in my ear hole and my nose hole, and Olivia walks in. She goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm trimming my nose hair."
That was a toothbrush. That was an electric toothbrush.
Yeah. And you don't think there's much there, but when you're hearing it doing its thing, I'm like,
away.
Yeah, I guess like in my ears I can't see, right? Yeah. So you're just trusting that it's happening.
I hear all that.
Yeah. So you're actively hearing it trim. I'm like, oh, it's doing its job. So
there's stuff in there.
And no, I haven't had any snags or where it's pulled. It's been painless. It's been really awesome. So
yeah, you don't even notice it.
And I gotta say, just getting back from Disneyland, I was there for 4 days, walking around the park, 20,000 steps. I forget what it was one day. So what are you supposed to do? 10,000 a day, so 20,000. The crop preserver and what is the other thing? The
Reviver.
Crop reviver. Afterwards, gets rid of the old chafing.
Nice.
Yeah.
And revives it.
A quick revival.
Spritz down there.
Which is key, because if anybody's ever had some chafing and you can't get rid of it fast, and you're in the line of work where you're back out there giving our hence first responder work, yes, it is very nice.
We used to call that, back when I used to work tour security stuff, we used to call that gig butt.
Gig butt, eh?
Gig butt, yeah, because your butt would get... Well, it's from the gig.
Right.
Which I hate that term.
Right. The old gig.
The old gig. So then, it would chafe because you're running around all day. And,
nice.
Yeah. Anyways,
a little known fact.
Yeah.
A little known fact. Yeah. Use the Manscaped products to help you with all that.
Beautiful. And then we got Stop the Bleed. Back over to Scott.
Yeah, bleeding is bad, so stop it.
Perfect. Moving on.
Direct pressure, wound packing, and tourniquet applications are the only way to stop bleeding. Or the best ways to stop bleeding. I guess there's other ways. Is there other ways?
That's kind of
that's really the only ways.
Yeah.
So that's
if you wait, it'll stop.
Oh yeah,
kind of
bleeding always stops. But but those are the 3 best ways to stop bleeding. If you want more information on that, go to stopthebleed.org.com.ca. Basically, look up Stop the Bleed. It's pretty much everywhere. You can take the training to train others, or you can take the training to just get training yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then we have the content as well on our YouTube page, so you can check out our YouTube and find some of the Stop the Bleed information.
Yeah, speaking of taking the training, Dr. Nick and Artak up in the Kootenays, but taking it worldwide on the web. Todd, why don't you tell us a little bit about that, if you haven't heard already?
Yeah, so the ATAC group, if you go online, you can find them. It's a group based out of the UK, the Anesthesia and Trauma and Casualty Care. We did the RTAC course, the Rescue, Trauma and Casualty Care, out in the Kootenays after we went to the ATAC group conference. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Nick Sparrow, he's the medical director, and put on a fantastic course. Again, we've said it before, one of the best courses that I've ever gone to. I've gone to a lot of them being a paramedic, and it's the most engaging, most takeaways with the high fidelity sims, and just realistic approach to it all. And the online component just makes it that much easier now for people to get onto it and start learning, and then there'll be a face-to-face component to come. So if you have any information or questions, you can go onto that online and reach out to Dr. Nick, and hopefully they'll get back to you. And yeah,
perfect,
good course,
awesome. And then country music, West Coast Canada. Talk to us about the Tanner Olson Band's job.
I think you just did.
I guess I did.
Yeah, that was everything. Country music, West Coast Canada, Tanner Olson. Check them out on Spotify. They are going to do a new song teamed up with somebody.
Ooh.
And I'll have to look it up while you're talking.
Okay.
Because I can't remember who it was.
Well, they will be coming back up in a moment here. We'll shift over to us here. So you made it this far. We appreciate that. Thanks for listening. You can check more of our info out there. As we said earlier on in the podcast, we're on the YouTubes, Instagrams, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, all of your social medias and your podcast streaming platforms. So yeah, give us a like, share, subscribe, gets us up in front of more people. We've also got, speaking of us, our Spring Seminar 2023, nicknamed Firepalooza. Now, you can't really call something a Firepalooza without a lot of fire, so we've got upwards of 24, 25 live sessions. Not all sessions will be active live fire, but there will be live fire times many, auto extrication, stabilization, search. We've got Swiftwater, we've got some rescue task force coming up. Mm-hmm. Force entry, Fortis, it's our local utility provider, going to have a gas, a electricity. They're going to have like a gas session. So dealing with gas supply, rupture, fire. So a component of that will be live fire as well. They do have their electricity session, so they bury a pole, talk about safety zones, talk about hazards, and I believe we're going to see their LNG again this year. Nice. Yeah, they were reaching out to try to make sure that can happen, because that was awesome setup there. So again, 24 sessions, give or take. They're not 100% ironed out yet, but pretty darn close. It is May 5th, 6th, and 7th in all over British Columbia, Canada. Registration is open. Spots are filling up. It's kind of geared towards, it's called the BC Volunteer Firefighter Seminar. It's been going on for years now, but it's kind of opened itself up to the Pacific Northwest, but anybody can come and enjoy it. It's got about, we've upped the session times to an hour, so nothing that you can in-depth learn from start to finish, but what you get out of it is just kind of those quick tips and tricks, things that you can take back if you don't have a lot of exposure to something that you can get a little bit of an idea, something that you can dive a little deeper in, and bring back home to your hometown department, and maybe add a couple things that you learned, or again, if you haven't done it at all before, kind of bring that back and put that into your training rotation as well. So over the 5th, 6th, and 7th, we have Friday night. You show up. We have a registration, some quick food and drinks, We did just secure some live music for that night. We'll have some small local bands playing. Awesome music though. Saturday morning we have opening ceremonies where we really like to kick off the weekend with a bang. I won't dive too much deeper in that, but for anybody that has YouTube, you can probably figure that out. And then we go into hands-on training for the rest of the day on Saturday. After we break down, we take about an hour and a half off and come back and do a banquet. And it's not like the long, drawn-out banquets where you have 1,000 people go up and do speeches. There are some local speeches or some local people that we will have some speeches done. We will be doing some giveaways during our banquet. We have some awards from the weekend and some potential door prize giveaways, so watch for that. And then after that, we go to the party in the park, and hopefully Scott is ready.
I've not found the name.
Oh my God, I have tried to ramble on. Yeah, well,
I can't find it.
I'm giving you plenty of opportunity. Maybe next week. I cannot ramble that long. Okay, fine. So we have party in the park where the Tanner Olson band's coming back up to play. They put on an amazing show for us for our 100-year celebration last summer. They're coming back. The band's going to be back. They've got more audio, more lights. We open up to the public, so all of the firefighters that are here obviously get free admittance. We have a small door fee for anybody from the public that wants to come in. And yeah, we have a couple-hour live show out in the park. And then Sunday again, we have a nice breakfast, and then back on for another half a day of live hands-on training. So, whew,
I can't find it.
You know, I kept on going. I'm like, he's still looking. He's going to do it for us, but we will have that for next week there. So yeah, that's going to be a seminar. Again, if you're interested, hop online. We will share that out to you this Monday here. So by the time that you hear this, we will have registration and information shared on our social media platforms that will link you over on how to learn a little more about Firepalooza 2023. And I think that's it. For the love of God, I think that's it. Anything else from you guys?
That is it for me. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks.
He just gave up.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again for listening. As always, stay safe, stay GTFF.